So the world, have you been paying attention to it? It's weird right now. It's real weird. Things are kind of upside down. You got some strange things going on politically. Pretty much everybody on Earth feels tension with at least one other group of people on Earth. And I have an observation about how that feels. Exhausting. That is so dang much to have constantly looming over you like this fog. And I saw this tweet the other day where somebody was like, there's some idiot somewhere is out in the woods living by a waterfall without his phone in his hand to tell him how angry and scared he ought to be. And I thought, okay, I wanted to have that tweet be a critique of everyone else, but that tweet is definitely a critique of me. What do we do about it? How do we respond to the fact that this is the reality of the moment that we live in? Well, option number one would be to think of a lot of new, novel things, countermeasures that we can use to push back as people who are flawed and have problems, but are still of goodwill and see what's going on and want to do something about it. So new countermeasures would be option number one. Option number two would be to just go to the well on some stuff from the distant past that has worked in the past. Go back and look at something that maybe is representative of a solution that's already in place to this problem. And I would propose that such a solution exists in Luke chapter 6, where Jesus of Nazareth is standing on this flat level place, as the text describes it, and he gets up in front of a mixed group of people who are living in an incredibly tense, difficult time. The world just got conquered by Romans. There are people who are rebels who want to overthrow the whole thing with bloodshed. There are other people in the same culture who want to accommodate their new Roman overlords. There's cultural conflict, linguistic conflict, tribalism like crazy. Religion has been weaponized to make an even bigger mess of things and just enrich one group of elite people. It's a dumpster fire that might actually be more dumpster fiery than the one you and I have made together. And then along comes this homeless guy, Jesus of Nazareth. He does a bunch of things that are very compelling. He says a bunch of things that are very compelling. And then he speaks to an audience in person who are comprised in this rare occasion of people from all the different tribes. I tell you who hear me, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Well, right out of the gate, he's blown the whole thing up. And if they didn't listen to another word that he said, but they were like, you know what? He's got a point. Maybe there just comes a time to let bygones be bygones. Go and talk to the people we've wronged. Figure it out as best as we can. Square up accounts where it's possible. Forgive where it's not possible. And just move forward together. It'd be great if people listened to that and they were like, you know, I might not be able to ever work it out with those people over there, but it's time to start thinking of them as humans again. I mean, it isn't that hard for me to imagine how they got to where they are. And sure, I think their solutions are terrible. I think their ideas would have ruinous outcomes. I'm not going to support those ideas or back that plan, but maybe if I'm empathetic to them as humans, they'll return the favor and be empathetic to me. And maybe there's something bigger than the things we fight about. I mean, just wouldn't it be great if that was the response? There's no indication in the text that that was the response, but rather that Jesus needed to say more words to flesh out his point because that didn't get it done. So I tell you, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. I wonder if any of this is getting through the armor at this point, or if it feels like one of those hollow, nothing personal if you happen to be 19 years old and a freshman in college, but those hollow 19-year-old freshmen in college speeches where people feel the friction and you got the better part of a semester of philosophy or something under your belt and you're like, guys, we just need to get along and try peace. Like, that impulse is great. There's just no plan. There's no framework. There's no rationale for why we need to try peace other than something that your professor said struck a chord with you, which again that's great. And I'm not really equipped to do a much better speech than that either. So maybe at this point, people listen to Jesus say this stuff and they're like, well, you sound like a freshman philosophy student. And that's nice, Jesus, but that's naive. It's not how things work. We have very real problems here with very real stakes. And you, if anything, to be honest, are being kind of minimizing to those problems. Blood has been shed. Money has exchanged hands. Words have been exchanged. People groups have come and gone. We have got something of a crisis on our hands, and we can't really afford to love our enemies. We hope that through the efficacy of our brilliant plan for how to make the world better, that we will one day get to a place where we can love our enemies. But there's a lot of political bloodshed and rubble to be picked through that we need to accomplish first before we can get to that very desirable, noble end that you're describing. My guess would be that the sophisticated people in the audience were like, that's what it's going to take. My guess would also be that there were some people in the audience who were like, you know what, maybe we should just do this. I'm tired. I don't understand all these things. I'm told I'm supposed to be mad, but it's not really stuff I'm mad about. I just need to do it to fit in with people who need me to be mad. I think I would like to love my enemies. I think it'd be nice if my enemies loved me too. I think it'd be kind of cool if we just reduced the amount of enemies we had. So maybe some people are in, maybe some people are terribly sophisticated and they're out, but Jesus goes on. If somebody strikes you on the one cheek, turn to him the other also. If somebody takes your cloak, don't stop him from taking your tunic. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, don't demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Aha. Well, there's a bit of a rationale. So he fleshes out the love your enemy thing. Remember that empathy word we were using earlier? This golden rule almost flows right over us because we've heard it so many times. But it would seem that what Jesus is saying is that if you can picture how you are and what it is to be you, and encounter the world through these five senses, and to have a brain and thoughts and ideas, and you dream at night when you go to sleep, and you fall in love with somebody, and you know what it is to physically hurt, to emotionally hurt, you're insecure about things, you got all of this stuff cooking and swirling around, and it's what makes you you. Well, guess what? Everyone else has all of that stuff. They've all got a reason. Just picture how you like to be treated and how you like to be conceived of, and then give that away, and it would fix a bunch of stuff. Yep, that would do it. That would disarm a lot of things. Well, he goes on. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even, quote, sinners, he's saying this tongue-in-cheekly, love those who love them. And by sinners, he means whoever you're imagining are the bad, deplorable people who do everything wrong and have all the wrong ideas and behave improperly, and are the ones who you can score easy points by being like, well, look how dumb and bad they are. Whoever that group is, bear in mind, they do have enough empathy within their tribe that they know that it is advantageous to each of them to love those who love them. You can get a lot of inclusion in a gang, even if the gang is corrupt top to bottom. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those whom you expect repayment from, then what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. His point is, don't listen to what I'm saying, not me. Jesus is saying, don't listen to what I'm saying and imagine that you're good because you've got all these counterexamples. And no. I love people. I'm good to people. I'm generous to people. Yeah, who? What do you get back out of that? Because of all that love and grace and forgiveness and generosity is really just you buying that back from another member of your tribe in advance. Well, you're doing it for selfish reasons. You're doing it for your own gain. But Jesus is describing such an empathy that it transcends those tribal boundaries, that it transcends your own preferences and your own safety group, and that you give it away to people it doesn't make any sense to give it away to. And now he brings it down the home stretch here. But love your enemies. Do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons and daughters of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked, but merciful, or rather be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. So there's the second reason that he gives for why this isn't just a pie in the sky, we should give peace a chance speech. Reason number one is you're a human and you know what it's like to be you. Then that means you can imagine what it's like to be someone else. Think about how you like to be treated. Give that away. That's an actual rationale. Actual rationale number two is that he's saying there's a God. God, as held out in the Bible, whether this is a document you believe to be from God or describing an actual God or not, the text of this, and the original audience would have been in agreement with this from the text, it indicates that God is this flawless, unlimited being, that he's right in all of his judgments, that he doesn't screw things up, that he doesn't have insecurities and problems. He's the one entity that is in a position to judge and whose job it is to judge. And then Jesus reminds the people of that. He's like, remember, the Most High, God, he's kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. If God, who is infinitely good and infinitely above us, can be patient, kind, long-suffering, loving to us who are profoundly flawed, how much more so should we be able to do that to people who irritate us or whose ideas we think are bad? Be merciful then, just as your Father is merciful. So it's not just be nice to people because being nice is better than not being nice. There's an actual anthropological rationale. We're all people here. We have this in common. And there's a theological rationale. We are more than just meat sacks that go around interacting with each other, but we are a creation of the eternal, flawless God. And look, at the very fact that we still draw breath and exist is indicative that the first cause has not wiped his hands of us, but is instead in the process of being patient. Therefore, emulate that patience in your relationships with others. If a follower of Jesus does battle over ideas just like a not follower of Jesus, something has gone wrong. The follower of Jesus has a anthropological rationale and a theological rationale for extending grace and patience and empathy, even in disagreement, even as they work toward different ends for how the world plays out. At the most simple level, all of the teachings of Jesus point back to this idea that God is enormously forgiving toward us, terribly flawed people. And he repeatedly articulates that that means that we have to live in a constant state of forgiveness, not holding a spiritual debt out against those who would wrong us, because no debt between people could exceed the vastness of the debt between God, who is perfect, and people who are flawed. Will we disagree? Yes. Will enemies exist? Well, yes. This text assumes that this will not diffuse everything and that enemies will exist. What this text describes is an orientation toward God and toward other people that even when we do run into enemies and disagreement, equips us for a life and a heart and a soul that plays out completely differently than what you get by strictly world kingdom values. If you like conversations like this and want to do more of it, there's an audio version of this where we work through the book of Matthew every single day. It's called the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Would love to have you come over and join me there as well. Whether that makes sense for you or not, I appreciate you thinking this through with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Let's do this again soon.